Okay, this is part 3 of my diamond fold album, and I mentioned when I first introduced you to the album that I was going to show you the technique I use for creating these journaling or picture blocks. And if you look at it close, and it's hard to see it in this light, you notice there's a lot of little lines that run through that, and that's called distressing. What you'll need for this is whatever piece of paper you're going to use as your background. You're going to need some glimmer mists. Get that in the shot. Some glimmer mists. I make my own and I put them in mini misters, and there's lots of tutorials on YouTube that show you how to make these, so I'm not going to explain that right now. And you're going to need an iron for this, and you're going to need a little spray bottle of water. So the first thing I do is I'm going to spray this piece of cardstock and get it fairly wet. So we spray it and I turn it over, and I'm working on a Ranger craft sheet. They're great, they're heat resistant, they wipe up really nice. One of the best things I ever invested in. Okay, the water gets into that and you just let it soak up a little bit, and then very carefully you pick it up and you start to crumple it, but be careful that you don't rip it. And crumple it up pretty good and into a pretty nice tight ball. Now I'm just going to set that aside for a second and wipe off my residue here, the water. And then we're going to take this and very carefully unfold it, being careful not to rip it. Now you see you get all those crinkles. Now if you don't get enough, just give another spurts of water to it and crumple it up again and unfold it and lay it flat. And when you've got enough crinkles in it, you're going to take a hot iron, set on dry, not on steam, and I recommend that you don't use your good iron, the one that you use for your clothes, because this is my craft iron. You know, I bought one of those little mini ones at one point in time, and quite frankly, I've had very little luck with those. They don't give off enough heat, they don't have enough surface, and really, I spent about $16, $17 at a scrapbook show for that little iron. And this one I think cost me about $12 at Walmart. So really, irons are very, very inexpensive. So I really recommend, unless you're going to go to a lot of shows or something, crops and that, and you don't want to pack a full-size iron, then maybe the mini one would be okay for that. But for this at home, this is good enough. Now, this is doing two things. One, it's drying out the paper. Very fast way to do it. You could do this with your heat gun, but you're not going to be able to press down the wrinkles as well. And I like my wrinkles a little bit more flat. So I don't know if you can see that. Get the light on it. But there's some wrinkles in there. Now, next stage is very simple. Grab your mists, whatever color. I'm going to be using 3 colors. I'm using something I mixed up called Sunburst Yellow. So a yellow. And you just mist it wherever you want. Let it sit for a minute or two and give it your next color. Color combination is really up to you. And if you're afraid you're going to get it too muddy looking, then it's simple just to dry it in between sprays. Okay, that's good enough. Now there's a couple of things you can do at this stage. You can leave it just like that. Let it sit for a couple of minutes so the color starts to dry, and then you go over it with your iron. Or you can take a Kleenex or a paper towel and you can just blot it a little bit. Makes the colors a little softer, gets rid of the speckledy parts to it. And when you're finished with that, hot iron. Same thing, give it a good press, and that'll dry out everything. Now at this point, you may find it's still a little damp, so what I like to do is just set it aside and let it dry for, you know, an hour or something before I start pasting it down into my books. Now I hope the light is right on that so you can get what it looks like. And you see, and it shimmers a little bit because I use glimmer mist. You don't have to use glimmer mist. You can use just straight paint and things like that on it. But I like the effect that this gives. Now, having said that, bonus technique, Same process. You take your card. Now you can either do this, distressing it, in the method I showed you, where we spray it with water, crumple it up, unfold it, press it, and then you have all the lines. But what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to show you what it looks like just when you do it on a piece of flat cardstock. And I'm not going to use the mists this time. I'm going to use watercolor crayons. I'm really having a lot of fun with these since I've discovered them. There's lots of ways to use them. Again, check out YouTube. There's plenty of videos on how to use watercolor crayons. But remember, these are watercolor crayons. They are not the cheap old Crayola crayons or whatever kind you buy for your kids at the dollar store. Those may say they're washable, but they're not necessarily watercolor crayons. Watercolor crayons do exactly what they say. They react to water. So, for this technique, I'm using the same 3 colors I used with the glimmer mist, and you're coloring. You just throw color wherever, using the side of the crayon. Hope that's in the shot. Yes. And so once you've got the color on it that you want, then I take a squirt bottle of water, just lightly mist it, and then I'm using a water brush. This is a Tim Holtz water brush, where water goes in the barrel, and then it keeps the bristles, I guess, of it nice and moist all the time. And all you do is just lightly move it over. Now, the more you mix the colors up, the muddier it's going to get. Okay? So you don't need to do a lot, and if you want to leave a little texture, you can, or if you want to smooth it right out, you just brush it a little bit more. And when you've got it all the way done, the way you like it, then, and the thing about a water brush too is you can just run it over your craft sheet a few times, and that gets the water up out of it, or into a paper towel or Kleenex. And then the same as what we did last time, I'm just going to clean up this mess underneath a little bit. Lay it down, take your iron, give it a press. And when you get it pretty dry, again, do the same thing. Set it to the side, let it sit for an hour, half an hour or so, and there you go. And you see? Different effect altogether. So you can play around. You can mix these two techniques together too to make this a little shimmery. Give it a spritz of some glimmer mist over top of it. Whatever you like. If you like the edges a little darker, put more crayon on the edges or more glimmer mist, or go over with your black stamp. Whatever with that. So that's really a fast and quick way to make backgrounds, make journal tags, make picture tags for your album.